and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we have something special, friends.
Yeah, this is something we would normally do as a Green Dream, but I just got to get it out because I was texting Sir Ezra real late at night. I was watching some footage. You know, first of all, let me apologize because we had done a video a while ago about who is the Night King's target, and I was saying Jon Snow.
Yeah.
And I still think there's a lot of evidence, but people were saying, Sir Matt, you are, you know, Maester Aemon could see this more clearly than you could.
What?
Yeah, and they're saying it is so obviously Bran. And the more I think about it, the more I went back and did research. I think they were right. So okay. I'm gonna you know, totally agree. You know, I hope there's nothing to forgive because
no,
man, in my rewatch I watched season 2 or season 6 episode 2, and this is where Bran is shown the vision from the three-eyed raven in the show.
Yeah,
three-eyed crow in the book, excuse me. And this is where I made you watch it right before we started recording this, Sir Ezra. He goes back and he sees Willis, right? He sees Willis, aka Hodor, and he sees kind of his dad and Lyanna, and they're all training. And when he comes out, he asks the three-eyed raven, he says, "Why would you pull me out? I was home. I was seeing what I want to see." And he says, you know, even being under the sea is beautiful, but if you stay too long, you'll drown. And so he asks Hodor. He says, "Hodor, I saw you. Your name was Willis, and you could talk. What happened?" And Hodor obviously responds with the word Hodor. But if you watch the scene and you really watch the way he says it, because you and I missed this, obviously everyone missed it when we first watched it for the first time, because we didn't know what happened to him.
Right.
But when you go back and you watch the way Hodor says his name, correct me if I'm mistaken, Sir Ezra, but it seems as if he knows what happens.
Yes,
you really need to go watch. You really need to watch the scene, because Hodor says Hodor. You know, like he
matter
says
of fact,
it he says it in a way like, you know, that you can just see the expression on the actor's face.
Right.
So, you know, that's again, that's something that we get by seeing it. You know, we don't know what the script was like, you know, because I'm sure I'm sure Hodor's script is like incredibly difficult, right? Because he's just saying the word Hodor, so it's mostly it's all emotion. You have to talk entirely through emotion. So, if Hodor knows what it is, because that's something we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
Does Hodor know that this would be his entire life's purpose?
Yeah.
And that that history was changed through Bran. So then Sir Ezra and I did a bunch of research before we started recording this about Three-Eyed Raven, Blood Raven, Bran, Warging, and, you know, Greensight and the whole deal. So I sent him this kind of text last night, and it starts by all caps, "Dude, I have a effing major theory." Because I was watching this like late at night in bed, and then I was like, "Oh my god!" It's all just clicking, and I said, you know, Hodor was fine until one day when he suddenly changed. Rhaegar Targaryen suddenly decided one day to pick up the sword. And I'm going to add in some stuff here, Sir Ezra, to the original text since I've been working on it here. So the Three-Eyed Raven shows Bran specific moments in time to prepare him for the Night King. The Three-Eyed Raven basically put him in a position to make Hodor happen. Think about it. The Three-Eyed Raven, aka Blood Raven, who would have been alive during the original time of the events, you know, that he's showing Bran. Blood Raven is still, or the Three-Eyed Raven is still alive during these events, during Rhaegar's sudden awakening, right, to decide to train, and Hodor becoming Hodor. And we had to look up when that was, and that was, he would have been Blood Raven at that time, or he would have been the Three-Eyed Raven during you know, those times, because he goes missing 253, right? So it would have had like 270s or something, you know, would have had to have been those events happen. I said, what if the Three-Eyed Raven is an instrument created by the children to combat the Night King? Blood Raven is beyond the wall. The children might make him the Three-Eyed Raven like they made the Night King, a very powerful Targaryen with Greensight. He would be a super powerful ally. Bloodraven sees these events unfold, doesn't maybe understand what is happening, like understand that it's Bran doing it, but sees that there is something happening beyond even his power. Whether he sees some of these events as Bloodraven while he's Bloodraven with the power of Greensight, future events, stuff like that, or as the Three-Eyed Raven studying history.
Right.
So he uses his influence as Bloodraven to get the direwolves across the wall and make the events unfold. So Bran gets pushed out the window and the story unfolds as we know it, because he knows he can't beat the Night King. We need a Stark, a Brandon Stark. The Night King, and this is my kind of thing about the targeting of the Night King. The Night King wants to become the Three-Eyed Raven so that he can go back into time and prevent himself from being created. He takes Craster's kids not because he needs to build an army, but because he's looking for a Greenseer. So another scene we watched was the scene where Bran gets touched by the Night King. So, question there is, we know that Bloodraven can influence people's, or the Three-Eyed Raven, right, can influence people's dreams. So when Bran is standing there and Bran gets touched, is that an actual live event, right? Is the Night King just standing there in the dead with his army, and then he somehow senses Bran, or is the Night King also in a vision? Is the Night King also have does the Night King also have Weirwood powers and capabilities? Because we don't know, because he touches Bran, so he would have to be able to see something as powerful as Bloodraven or Bran inside the space and time, essentially. So my thought there is, if we know the children created the Night King, correct? So with Bran and the Three-Eyed Raven, for him to be able to see him, I feel like it would have to be something beyond the power of just standard magic. I feel like it would have to be because he was also a child of the of the children of the forest.
Yeah. He was a creation of them. Yeah.
Right. And so now the children are, the children tried something outside of what they would normally try. Like they tried blood magic, right, to create the Night King. So, through the power of the Weirwood trees and stuff like that. So maybe this time they got it right by creating the Three-Eyed Raven. So there's kind of a lot to this. It was kind of just a big theory, mind thought kind of dump into this text I sent Sir Ezra late last night. But there's a lot of stuff we want to kind of look at. So I think first we should kind of look at the idea of Bran through history changing events and times. We obviously know the big theory that he influenced the Mad King, but I think there's these other moments too where things suddenly happen, right? So we know Hodor, Bran influences it, and obviously this is mostly show. We're going to tie in some book stuff, and could potentially happen the same way in the books.
And actually along that line, Sir Matt, if I may, just real quick, a quick tie into the book, because I've been trying to. I mean, there's so much to this that I'm just trying to on the fly keep up here, because the Bloodraven says in the books, he actually warns Bran that we can go back and look at the past, but you can't influence it. Wow.
Right, which we know isn't true, because we see it on two occasions with Bran. We see it when Bran tries to reach out to his dad during the Tower of Joy scene, and when Bran tries to or when he makes Hodor. So my kind of thought is, so there's a bunch of there's more events that we know of in the books where things like that happen. So Bloodraven suddenly decides one day to, put down the book and pick up a sword, whether it's something he reads or perhaps somebody guiding him to read a very specific section or page of a book.
Yeah, Rhaegar. Yeah, yep.
Right, Rhaegar Targaryen, right? And so, I don't think Bran is going to do the Hodor thing right away in the books. I think he'll have multiple moments. I think the Tower of Joy scene will still happen in the books, because there Bran tries to do it, but the Three-Eyed Raven's no, we got to get up here and see the rest of this unfold. Yeah. So Bran, when he gets touched by the Night King, it's when everyone else isn't paying attention, right? The Three-Eyed Raven is asleep and stuff like that. So what if Bran is trying to do it in more scenes, because of the book, we'll get more scenes, we'll get more, possibly attempts of this happening. And so what if And so what if that is also how the Mad King does the whole burn them all thing? Because I'm just starting to think now we may not have enough time for this in the show, so they're gonna have to skip over stuff that would also be added into like fluff, pieces of the book.
Yeah. Right. So now, okay, so let me ask a question. So Bloodraven, so who's behind it? So is it Bloodraven going back and seeing these things, and then, as you say, because in the books I just said, he tells Bran you can't influence these things, but perhaps maybe that is to test him and see,
Right. Yeah, maybe he doesn't know, or maybe he tells him you can't do it in order to try and get Bran to do it. Because as we know, what is Bran's character? Bran's character is don't climb. Right? And then he climbs. His character is don't stay in summer too long. You can't eat as summer. Well, what does Bran do? He tries to stay in summer. That's everything that Bran is told not to do. He rebels and does. So you can't influence the past. And maybe he doesn't want him to influence specific parts of the past. And so he's like, no, let's go, because he's like
guiding him to those spots. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing too is in the books, we don't know if Bloodraven says that first, and then he all of a sudden hears, like, he takes Bran somewhere, and then he when Bran cries out to either his father. Actually, there's a point where Theon, when he shows up in the books, he sees Bran's face in the weirwood and hears Bran call his name and turns. Yeah. So at that point, Bloodraven or Three-Eyed Crow would say, "Oh boy, this kid can actually influence events." So because Bran's more powerful. You and I both agree. Bran's, Blood. It's not like Bloodraven wasn't a powerful guy. Bloodraven clearly had Greensight, and he's called the last Greenseer. But I don't know. We don't know that he had the ability to warg as well, like Brandon does. Yeah. No, he did. Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, he can. He's got the Moonstone, right? He's got the gemstones that provide a glamour and stuff. So he's not really skin changing as far as we know. He has the Greensight, and he, he's got Targaryen blood in him. So that's
right.
Some level of magic in and of itself. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he doesn't have skin changing abilities, or as far as I know, or the ability to warg and things. So yeah, Bran just has more. He's like a souped up, Bloodraven. So.
Yeah, actually, not that I want to get off this, but I did see. I can't remember where I saw it. Whether was it in our Facebook group or on Reddit, but somebody was talking about the power of Greensight and how they're saying it actually, if you look at it, it stems a lot of the time from the Riverlands. Is that's where it kind of comes. Is because Bloodraven is Targaryen, but his mom is from someone from the Riverlands. Bran has power of the Riverlands because of his mom being a Tully, and so maybe that it's what you needed is you actually needed a Stark who was born a Stark and a Tully combination, which would be awesome if that ended up being somewhat of the case, because then that would justify more like the idea of Jon, the need for Jon to be a Targaryen and a Stark, like the power of ice and fire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, that's like setting up those, the different blood, and trying to get that all mixed the right way to produce someone who could, be our hero. So, yeah. Wow. Okay, I mean, another thing that I had here was you were talking, and I just want to back up, and I'm going to bounce around here. The babies. You were saying that the Night King. Remember when you were talking about him touching Bran?
Right.
And go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what I was going to say is, so a lot of this idea of who the Night King is after, right? We were thinking about Jon, right? Because he specifically just doesn't kill Jon. Yeah. So I mean, Jon is still obviously candidate 1 if and Bran is like 1A, 1A and 1B. I think it's clearly one of those two. Obviously, the people who might say Craster's baby as well, but what I'm starting to realize is the Night King clearly has the power to see Bran through a vision, through the Weirwood network, whatever. We know that the others and the Whites weren't able to get through the cave to Bloodraven, the Three-Eyed Raven, because of the magic that the children put on him. So I mean, ultimately, you have to kind of think, what would the Night King want? If the does I think you have to be something bigger than just wanting to destroy, like go sit on the Iron Throne and destroy everything and all of that. I think that what the Night King realizes, because I think we need to start asking ourselves, when we kind of go back and study that scene, if the Night King can see Bran through a vision, what powers does he have? And if he also has powers of the three-eyed raven, then can the Night King, who may be able to see into future events, right? Because he doesn't kill Jon for specific reasons. Does he not kill Jon because he knows Daenerys is sending a dragon, and he knows if he can get a dragon, he can destroy the wall? So I think he wants Bran because if Bran can influence the past, maybe he can, and maybe he can prevent himself from ever becoming the Night King.
Right. Yeah, like that. And so real quickly on this note, like, so a connection between the books and the show, a lot of theories around the Jojen paste are that, like, Bran's green sight is heightened or awakened because of possibly another green seer having, if he's consuming another green seer's blood, that might, cause some of that to awake in Bran. So perhaps, Craster's sons were the Night King trying to power up, level up, consume them in some way to gain, to get to Bran's level, I guess, to counter him, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because correct me if does Mira have green sight? Does Mira have? I'm blanking on that. No, we only know of men having green sight, correct?
That's a really good point. Actually, yeah. Actually, I have it right here. So, green sight, green seers, the wise men of the children of the forest, reputedly possessed the green sight. So, it just says wise men. I'm sure there were maybe, women. I don't know. We have Leaf and what's her. Well, I say her, but the children of the forest. I don't really know how we identify their sex or whether we do or not, but they also have, that's different, though.
Right. Yeah, that's their children.
Their children.
Forest,
yeah. But I don't. Well, hold on. Now we have, what's her name? Dany's the Dreamer, right? Didn't let me go back.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Let me see. I think that might be one where she had a vision, to get the Targaryen family out of Valyria. So maybe I have to see if that's actually, Greensight or not. So.
Yeah, because we know that Rickon has it, because Rickon has the same dreams that Bran does.
Yeah, but right there. Let me see. It doesn't really say. It just says Dany's was a maiden. She had powerful prophetic dreams, showing the destruction of Valyria in 126 BC. And again, Greensight is actually characterized as, you have these dreams that do come true in some way, and it comes down to, they're symbolic in nature, and you have to kind of interpret them. So, yeah, wow. So I guess it could also be and it makes sense. It would probably be in women too, I would guess. So, but I see what you were driving to, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I mean, it's mostly men. I mean, some people are saying, like, this, like, I'm reading some Reddit forums and posts and stuff, like, this guy's saying the Ghost of Highheart, in my opinion, is a green dreamer like Jojen. They have no control over what they are shown, and they always come true. The ghost dreams seem more literal, sigil based, while Jojen's dreams seem to have a more metaphorical quality to them. Green seers like Bran and Bloodraven can seem to do more in the waking. They can they kind of wed the trees to see more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because then there's other people too, right? There's people that like Melisandre uses, magic to see. She sees things through the flame. Through the flames. Maggie the frog, right? And candles and red priests and blood magic.
Quaithe,
exactly. So it seems like they have to do different things. So it's possible through multiple ways. It doesn't necessarily just have to be through the power of green sight, but green sight and green dream, seem to be its own more powerful kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know why it was just boys, or just men that Craster, was, male children that he was giving over, but maybe it's just, I don't know. That's never really thought about. Why is it only, is it just for to continue to reproduce and to make the sacrifices, or he was instructed to do that? But I don't know. Interesting. Yeah.
Because I think that's I think that's a part of this whole Night King. What are they after? What do they want? Type of a thing is what is it about these boys and Craster's children specifically that they're after?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a great question. Real quick, another thing to back up here, as you were talking about these major events that Bloodraven was putting Bran in. I mean, so do you think then, like, if the Night King's also getting these abilities, is it like a battle of time travel? Like, who can go back and influence events? To like.
I don't know.
We don't know that the Night King can do that. I mean, I'm not saying that he can. Bran seems special, as you're trying to say that it seems like he can influence, go back in the past and change things and see the future. It says that he can see the future, present, and past.
Right.
So we're there, folks. I mean, we're talking about it. That's
right.
What it says
exactly.
in the text.
I mean,
so
right. And think about it. What I just don't know what else the Night King would want, and Bran seems to have that ability. So if he were me, I'd be like, if I could change anything, I would change me ever becoming, a White Walker. But the White Walker also seems, for obviously more in the show, the Night King seems drawn to like power. Like he doesn't just kill things, because he doesn't kill Jon, specifically doesn't just kill him. So he wants something from Jon. He doesn't just kill these Craster's babies. He wants to, turn them into something more. He doesn't just outright. Well, the Viserion's kind of different because we don't entirely know. It seems like maybe he turns him into a white. There's also theories of, we were talking about, is it a hive mind type thing? His power over the whites, because think about this: do the whites in that scene, don't attack Bran? Do they see Bran? We don't know. And then the whites all stand there until the Hound throws that rock, and then they realize they can cross.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So was he because the Night King's obviously some sort of powerful magical being. I don't think that it's also like it's water. Like, clearly the Night King can freeze a lake to where people can cross if he had to.
Sure.
Like,
okay.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, for sure. And back to your point about him targeting Bran. I mean, if he did have a family, let's say he had like the love of his life. Let's say he is Azor Ahai or the last hero, and Nissa comes into play. Maybe you would want revenge on the children and the last Greenseer, air quote, Bran, who they used to, because what Bran in the show, was he there? Isn't Bran who sees the vision of how the children create the Night King?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
So that's another event that Bloodraven
specifically shows him. Yeah.
Okay, and so that's kind of bizarre, isn't it? I mean, Bloodraven sitting with the children shows Bran, hey, the children actually created the guy that was just outside the cave trying to kill us. So now, as you're saying, to counter their mistake, they summon, Bloodraven disappears in, what would we say, 252, 253 AC,
right.
And they because of who he is and his abilities.
Right, exactly. So, the theory, there's lots of theories on the three-eyed raven. Have they been there forever? Because in the show, he says, I've been waiting for you for thousands of years.
Those minds passed down. Yes.
Right, right. Is this something that gets transferred? In the book, I mean, correct if I'm wrong, but I don't think that that's ever said, that I've been waiting for you for thousands of years. I think because Bloodraven hasn't been alive for thousands of years. But Bloodraven would be somebody that would have to be pretty, dang powerful. I mean, he's a Targaryen. He's got Greensight. He is also like very skilled in magic.
Yeah.
So
now hear me out. In the books, there are other children who have the multicolored eyes who are connected to the Weirwood network, and
yes,
So why is he significant, and why is it that is it can he appears as the three-eyed crow? Are the other children appearing as the three-eyed crow, or is it just Bloodraven? It seems to be just Bloodraven. Or I'm sorry,
right?
The three-eyed crow.
Crow Raven,
yeah. I'm just mystified as to so the children are trying to make up for their mistake, but they something we just read in that last Bran 3 chapter of A Dance of Dragons is that the spirits of the other green seeing children are still in the ravens. When Bran goes into the ravens, by the way, right at the end of Dance of Dragons is the first time he went into the Weirwood tree network. I mean, he had gone into Hodor, he had gone into the ravens and what have you, and was still kind of broadening his powers. And he has all those visions and dreams, which we can talk about here in a sec if you'd like. But he goes into the ravens, and that's when he notices that the former children who are deceased, their minds or essences or spirits are in those ravens, is what I understood. I could be wrong, but we went back and looked at that, and so maybe that's the passing. Maybe the show took that and said, okay, well, that's the passing down of previous generations where the children are one big group still kind of influencing things through that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that? I mean, what do you think about my theory or kind of my questions? Do you think that Bloodraven somewhat caused the events to unfold? Obviously, there's the direwolf one. I think a lot of people kind of agree with that. But I mean, the visions that he specifically shows Bran. What do you kind of think about those?
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that maybe Bloodraven didn't realize, and I don't know, I'm going kind of mixture of book and show here.
That's kind of what we have to. That's kind of what we have to do. I mean, that's just the way it is right now. Yeah.
Right. So maybe he didn't realize that Bran could influence those events, and that just happened by accident. But I don't think that's the case. It seems very intentional. He shows him certain events. For whatever reason, and I think it's because Bloodraven has been seeing. If he can see the past, he's been seeing it play out over and over and over. And maybe he sees some variant of. It's kind of like, this is going to so bizarre, but like in the Force, right? When you see the visions of the future, you see many possibilities. Many possible paths in the future. So as Bloodraven is, dropping him into these different scenes in the past, he's also affecting what he sees in the future. So I see that. I mean, that totally could be a thing. What baffles me is that, did the children? I mean, this is thousands of years ago. When Bloodraven goes missing in 252 AC, that seems to be the first time that they've had, as far as we know, interaction with men, and maybe even Targaryens, especially, who could. I mean, what Targaryen was that far north of the wall? You know what I mean? Bloodraven's kind of special in that, so they interacted with the First Men, then the Andals, and then the Targaryens come over in 300 AC. You know what I mean? So that's interesting, but I don't know why it's taken all this time for them to find someone who they can. Put their, I don't know, their hopes and whatever, or kind of push or lift up to correct what they had done before, because the Night King, I mean, for thousands of years is just chilling. So it's almost like by them lifting up, Bloodraven and putting him in this position as the three-eyed crow, that might have triggered the Night King to come forward. Why has it been this long? And then, it seems to be, all these things are happening around this time. So I don't know. But I'm with you on that. I do think, there's that Bloodraven is putting him in these spots intentionally, because if you can't change the past and what's the point? What is it that Bloodraven can do? I guess.
Yeah, just see things and
he can see. So he sits there and he sees things.
Mm-hmm. I mean that seems entirely useless to me. It seems like the children, because the children create the White Walker the White Walkers, and the Night King for a reason. They create him because, and Bran asks them. He says, you created the White Walkers, and they talk about, we had to do something because we were being slaughtered by you guys, like the coming of the First Men and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what would the three-eyed raven be if there was, is he just an aspect of the Great Other? There's all that theories. I think it seems far more likely that the children tried to realize, like, hey, we created the White Walkers. This is bad because they're destroying us and destroying everything. We need something else, and so they create the three-eyed raven. Because when you think about the three-eyed raven, it seems kind of similar, right? He has powers through the Weirwood. He needs to be like, connected to a Weirwood, and obviously the children of the forest are working with him. You know what I mean? And so the children, and I don't think that like the three-eyed raven, I don't think was there forever, because the children would have never needed the three-eyed raven before, because there were no men in Westeros, so they all had power of if you go all the way back to the Dawn Age, the children were able to live with the Weirwoods, and they gave them power. So it's not like there was a man in there that was a three-eyed raven. So that clearly had to come later.
Yeah. Okay. Hear me out on something. The children are north of the wall, and the others and the White Walkers are north of the wall. Building the wall, the others were defeated. Bran the Builder, with the aid of the giants, the first men, and perhaps the children of the forest, raised the wall. Right, some 8,000 years ago. How are the children ending up on that side of the wall? Like, as you say, after the long night ended, did they decide, because the long night comes about essentially from what we get from the show, because they created, this being, the others, or the Night King, to fight back against the men. Well, they messed up, and so maybe part of their punishment is that they go beyond the wall to make sure that this group of beings can never get south of the wall.
Yeah,
but they're north of the wall. I mean,
I know. Yeah, maybe. Well, we still don't know, as we talked about in our big Patreon episode, the Isle of Faces, right? It's still believed that there are tons of children of the forest, or at least some that live there. So yeah, I'm still with you. We covered that a lot big in our Patreon episode. Is the timing? Some of that stuff just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, exactly. So and also you're just reading in Bran 3, A Dance of Dragons, where he talks about shifting into Hodor to explore the cavern, and Leaf kind of explains that they don't even know that underground sea and the rivers that flow. Maybe there is connections under the wall to the Isle of Faces. We have no clue. So yeah, you're right. Maybe the children are still, at the Isle of Faces. We know they can see through those weirwoods. They're connected to the weirwood network. But their powers are kind of limited to where the weirwoods are. There are more of them north of the wall than there are, south, because they've been cut down. And actually, that's one of the things it's mentioned multiple times, that the old gods, when Robb marches south, he's marching the wrong way, right? And the old gods, there's no one down there to see him and to help him and to protect him. The weirwoods are not there as much as they are in the north. So anyways, that's a reoccurring theme. But as you and I were talking, though, about the difference between like the long night and how it came about, and how like there was the signing of the pact, at the Isle of Faces, where like, okay, first men and children are like signed a pact, like we're good, like they agreed that for a peaceful coexistence, and who broke that? I mean, like who broke that peace? What was it? The first men, and then they created the Night King, or
right? We talked. That's what we talked about in a bigger Patreon episode. Right. We don't know. We don't know. And actually, you and I think that the timeline is actually a little bit wrong, because the Andals and the Maesters and whoever and the Septons are the ones telling us. They belong to the Seven, and so they're obviously not going to say that it was their influence that caused the signing of the pact or the agreement to be ruffled, which would then cause the children to create something that would fight back this Andal influence. But yeah, you guys can check that. We kind of go over that in great detail, because I said in the Patreon episode that the Andal invasion actually takes place supposedly long after the long night, but I'm not so sure. I don't know what it would be that would have tipped, the children into creating the Night King and bringing on the long night, if it weren't for
another group of men that showed up that maybe they weren't around when the pact was signed. So why are they going to honor it? So that was a whole other thing. But it's interesting to go look at the timeline and see how possibly, it might not be what we think it is. Kind of our theory.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. You and I were reading the Dance of Dragons Brand 3, where the Leaf tells them, like she talks about like 1,000 of your years, and that was something we talked about too in that Patreon episode. Like who like time, because this draws from a lot of history books and things like that, and we kind of talked about like some history books use time in totally weird ways, right? Like
right, yeah.
What is a year?
Well, and so exactly, like when you look at the show, is that not the same character playing Leaf who helped to create the Night King all those thousands of years ago?
It is. Yeah. Well, he asked Leaf straight up, and he says, "You created the White Walkers." She says we had to.
Yeah. So that's like she's been around. So how old is Leaf? Yeah, very interesting. Because that's the same actor, that they're showing there back during the what I'm guessing would have been the Long Night, unless that was something a different time. But it seems like that was the precursor,
Yeah, because if they created the other, I mean, it would just because it seems like the white. I mean, think about the whites, right? Like the whites seem like to be something that the White Walkers raise. So it's not. I mean, because clearly they're like zombies, essentially, So the White Walkers seems to be their own, their own kind of a thing. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like at least in the show's history, the book history could be different. They may have been there as well, but it seems like in the show's version of history is that they didn't exist until they created them, which I think a lot of people would agree with. And so, to me, if they created the White Walkers, then they also created Three-Eyed Raven as kind of like counteract, to fix it, right? Like, hey, we made a big problem here. We need because they did it once, right? So now they're on the decline even more. They're gonna go try and get closer. They're gonna view their religion, their fate, their version of religion, which is the Weirwood trees and what gives them power. And okay, now we're gonna, try to use the Three-Eyed Raven, right? So, and also they clearly used a human, right? They used a man to create a weapon, to fight against it. So now they're gonna try and use, maybe a man with a similar thing. And it's possible that the human that became the Night King, right? Also had Greensight. Like maybe they specifically chose him because it seems like that guy wasn't really like, obviously willing,
Well,
so at least with the show, because a lot of the theories of the Night King, right, is that he was Azor High, he was stuff like that. But that time I'm starting to think that the show history and the book history, I mean, they're going to be real different because the timeline in the books, for some of that stuff to work the way it is, as you and I said with the timeline, it's going to have to be a lot of it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree with you. On the topic of okay, you just said something that was interesting, and a couple things here. The Green Seer. Okay, when they create the Night King, you were saying perhaps they chose a Green Seer, right? Or someone who had that ability, and from what we know, and I've always been confused by this, but when you look up Greenseer, just on the wiki, I'm looking quickly. It says that they were wise men and leaders of the children of the forest. Does that mean that they were like before? Were they just wise? Air quote. Like, were they still children, or why do we call them wise men and leaders of the children of the forest who had magical abilities? So were they there before the first men? Were there other, like, very few men who maybe, like you said, they chose one of their own, green seers to make that type of sacrifice, In the history here, it says green seers had the green sight and were wargs as well. The first men believed that they were responsible for carving faces into werewoods, creating heart trees, and so on. I just think that's, kind of interesting that maybe you're right, and that they create. So the Night King is has that ability to, I don't know what kind of you were talking about, like touching Bran, like can either see, gosh, I don't know, it just has that ability that has green sight, is it maybe a green seer, and then you would need someone to counteract that. Now, remember how earlier I mentioned that the Targaryens, like they weren't on, as far as we know, they weren't really on. None of the Valyria freehold was really over on Westeros. They had their own empire, that they were kind of, they were all over Essos and enslaving everyone and things. I feel like if you needed someone that powerful, or you needed someone like Bloodraven, am I wrong in that, like, that's one of the first maybe Targaryens that they ever encountered? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, possibly.
Because, like, the Targaryens didn't come over until just before.
Well,
300 AC.
we know. I mean, obviously he's a bastard. So there's tons of. I'm sure there were Targaryen bastards we don't know about, and it's possible one of them wound up at the wall. But I mean, Alicent Targaryen tried to fly over the wall and she couldn't do it. So yeah, I don't think it's possible that many Targaryens ever made it up there.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that all this kind of unravels as the Targaryen, as fire, moves further north and into, ice, and that, that fire being, Bloodraven. I just find that really interesting, even though there were other Targaryens who had gone, started to, what was his name? Bittersteel starts to head that way, right, and then is freed, but Bloodraven actually maybe foresaw something that, like you've often said, maybe knew he needed to go there. He had a vision himself. Maybe it's actually, we've been giving the children a lot of credit. Perhaps
right.
He
also, I mean, keep in mind, he also when he goes to the wall, he goes with one of these, smartest, people that we know about, Maester Aemon. So Maester Aemon, who's a very studious person and has been a studier of history his whole life. Maybe there's something there, right, where Maester Aemon tells him, hey, we need to go seek out the children, because I think they're real. Because if you keep thinking, think about some of the other Targaryens that were around, while he was still Bloodraven. You have Darren, who we knew had dragon dreams, and I think we don't know about Egg, but Egg gets really obsessed with this idea of trying to, the Azor Ahai prophecy, right? And thinking that that person's going to come from his line, right? So so a lot of that stuff's kind of going on at the same time too. Is that Bloodraven influencing it? Is it Bran from the future? I mean, what if you got to think about some weird time stuff too, because once you get into time travel, it just messes with everything. Is what if Bran caused has to go back in time to cause Bloodraven to go north? I mean, it's all kind of time. It's all kind of time paradoxy, but But that's what happens once you get into time travel in a story. It it messes with all kinds of different things.
Yeah. I did want to make one clarification, because we got a lot of terms going on here. We've talked about skin changing, green dreams, Greensight,
dragon dreams, wolf dreams,
all that stuff. Yeah. So I think Jojen, when he's talking to Bran, I found a really good quote. I went on to just a search of Ice and Fire here. And, Bran kind of calls Jojen at one point a green seer. And Jojen says, no, only a boy who dreams. So I'll stop there for a second. Jojen just has green dreams. He has dreams that sometimes come true. Jojen goes on to explain to Bran, the green seers were more than that. They were wargs as well as you are, and the greatest of them could wear the skins of any beast that flies or swims or crawls, and could look through the eyes of the weirwoods as well, and see the truth that lies beneath the world. So, just to be clear, because I know we talked about Daenerys the Dreamer and other folks, and Darren having dreams and stuff like that, but like the difference is that Bran can, and they call, so if they call Bloodraven the last green seer, then I'm guessing he has these abilities too. Then he is able to, we don't know that he can warg. I don't know that is something that he can do, but he can skin change. Perhaps it seems like if he is the last green seer, then he should be able to do all these things too, is my understanding. But anyways, yeah. So just wanted to make that clear, I guess, because it's a little confusing sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. So I mean, that's kind of my theory. Sir Ezra. That's kind of some of my thoughts and just thinking about all this. Obviously, we're gonna find out a lot more in a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100% we will. Yeah,
and it's still weird because we're still at a place where the show is ahead of the books. If it were the other way around, we'd say, oh, really? What are they cutting out? You know. But now it's like we have to use the show to kind of pinpoint things that could happen in the books. Like Jorah Mormont getting grayscale and Sam healing him, right?
Yeah.
Is that going to be John Connington that he heals? Because it's a different character. They kind of merge characters and stuff. So, is that same thing going to happen? Because clearly some of the bigger events are. I mean, it's not like Gur has kind of said it's probably going to be different, but I mean, I don't think that it can't all be different. It can't be like 100% different.
The essence is there, but I think he gave them enough. But then how you get there is kind of up to you. He gave them a couple major things that would sell it, be cool, and be authentic to what he's doing. You don't want him to be completely different, because they start off with the adaptation adapting it from his works. So it'd be kind of crazy to not get guidance about where he's going, but he hasn't finished them, and his writing evolves, and it's just kind of, I know that he knows the ending and he knows what he wants to do, but I mean, he has a creative way, I think, in which he wants to get there, and really, really take us. He loves for his readers to kind of the emotional roller coaster. Obviously, he loves for us to, for those deep analytical readers to pick up on the little tiny hints and just, you feel good because you're like, oh, I got that, awesome, cool. I'm seeing what the author is, the little subtle foreshadowing that he's putting in here. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be different. There's no way you can get around it, and I think that's one of the reasons why Gurm is having so much, trouble maybe finishing, because like it's some of the thunder is being stolen, by the show, and I don't think he intended that, and it's not any fault of his or theirs. It's just I don't think he expected it to go as fast as it did, and then for him to have as many duties on top of what he, what I'm saying, like, so. Gosh.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's just an interesting situation. I don't think this is super rare. I mean, this is just just very, very, very different. So but it's cool.
Yeah, all right. Well, guys, we just wanted to give you guys kind of a extra episode, talking some season 8, kind of Bran, Night King stuff. So as we close out here, do you have any last thoughts here before we kind of?
Yeah, well, real quick, I just want to say that I like your. This is a green dream that came to Sir Matt last night. So I mean,
I was texting you at like 10 o'clock my time, which was.
Right. Yeah. And so sometimes, we don't have as much time as we'd like to really just get it all done because we're moving on right after this recording. We're going to start working on the Crypts of Winterfell. Lord Adam Parker has come through in a major way, and we've got some really cool stuff coming there. And we have to prep for Raven's Nest. So make sure you hop in that, Patreon tier and so you can participate in Raven's Nest. I mean, it's huge. We've got some crazy Ravens coming. So shout out to all those folks. But yeah, I just wanted to, for everyone to know that like lot to do, a lot of work is happening, and so as things come up, we just have to, turn the mics on and get after it. So we appreciate you listening. I'd like to hear what people think, in regards to the Night King and, Bran and just their theories or their thoughts, and like, did the children are the children recruiting? Bloodraven to counter the Night King, or did Bloodraven seek out the children, kind of like we've heard that Zor Ahai or I'm sorry, the last hero sought out the children for aid. I don't know. So
yeah, exactly. So all right, well, as we close here, hey, if you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write us a review, or leave us a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so. And we'll see you, I guess, on Monday. And remember that winter is coming.